you were as I want you to be.
K. Tempest once wrote, "His words are in our mouths. His words have tangled round our own and given rise to expressions so effective in expressing how we feel, we can't imagine how we feel without them."
In the writing of William Shakespeare, encompasses the breadth of human emotion, embraces people of all social rank, and warns us of the danger hiding beneath men's smiles. His are the stories of paradox, so startling, yet so universal.
There is no better expression for our paradoxical tales than this bard of Avon, who is the marrow from which so many stories flow. His words pour from our pens like spring showers and summer storms.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the celebration for the release of Inside Out, Paradoxical Tales told by the juniors of Hoboken High School. The stories in Inside Out examine life through the paradoxical lens. Hear nothing but what is not. We are not so happy, yet happier. We engage battles lost and won, and we discover that fair is foul and foul is fair. We realize that certain conflicts cannot be ill, cannot be good.
In our tales, we find light at the end of a dark day, make an enemy of a friend, discover ourselves through inner turmoils, and turn a bad situation into one of a great reward. In each of our tales, we relive moments of paradox. Through our writings, we have given rise to expressions so effective in expressing how we feel.
You are with us, tempest toss. No need to clutch an umbrella. Let it blow inside out. Immerse yourself.
We're reading Shakespeare. Listen as we turn ourselves inside out. Now reading My Mom, our first speaker, Isiah Anderson.
The first time my dad went to jail, he was 21. He was arrested for having illegal drugs on him. I wasn't even one. He has been in and out since because of drugs. He hasn't been in my life consistently for the past 16 years. I always thought it was my fault that he wasn't there. I thought that maybe my father did those things to have money for me and my mother without realizing the consequences. I always stuck up for him whenever my mom and I argued about him. I didn't want to think about the negatives. Your father will never amount to anything. I'm the only one you should be worried about because I do everything for you, she would say. I keep a roof over your head. I pay for the clothes. Everything you have is because of me. I don't care about what you got me. I would explode at her. All I care about is my father and what he's done for me. When I was 11, I played baseball. I was nervous at my first game. I never played baseball or any other sport. Walking onto the field, I noticed all the other dads with their sons and wished that mine was there. I remember batting up. I remember hearing my mom yell my name, motivating me to hit the ball. Playing sports wasn't her thing, but she was there. Also, one Christmas, I remember she tried really hard to find a second job to make extra money to buy us gifts. She was able to borrow money from my grandmother. On Christmas morning, there was a lot of gifts under the tree for me and my siblings. Everybody got what they wanted. I know it wasn't easy for my mom to ask her mom for money. My mom is the type of person who never asks anyone for anything. I guess it was a pride thing, but she put her pride aside for us. As I got older, I started to ask myself, what has he done for me? Nothing. I realized what my mom said was true. My dad made promises saying he was going to get me this or hang out with me, just little promises that he couldn't keep. I started to realize that it was nobody's fault but his own, that he couldn't be in my life. My father was nothing to me. He was a stranger. The only person I should have cared about all these years was my mother. She's always been honest with me. She's my best friend. It is because of her that I gave my dad one more chance. I didn't want to, but she always told me that everyone makes mistakes and it's important to give people a chance to fix their wrongs. I did, and I got let down, again. I learned that you can't help a person who doesn't want to change. I gave up for good this time, but I know that the only person I ever needed was there all along. I wake up every day grateful to have her in my life. I know that I might not always show it, but I love her with all my soul. I wouldn't trade her for anything in the world. Thank you, Mom, for everything you have given me and for loving me unconditionally.
Thank you, Isiah. Now reading Don't Give Up, Anina Cruz. I'm so short. Okay. You can hear me, right?
Yep, perfect. Okay. The beginning of everyone's life starts off as a novel named The Book of Life. Everyone has his or hers very own storybook. It conceals the true tale of that person's adventure. Within it, there are many pages. Some have scribble marks, some have crumbled or ripped edges, some are just torn out, and some are blank, waiting for the future. As the course of time moves on, so do the pages of the book. It's the memory of hardship that manufactures a soul, and it commences with a schedule that normally begins with a ring. Beep, beep, beep. The vibrations of his phone screamed. It slammed against his eardrums, forcing his body to shake and cringle into the soft embrace of his blanket. It was as if the heated hands of the sun had struck his cheek and threw him out of his cocoon. He found himself on the cold, hard floor. He was awake, yet he felt this drag under his eyes. He pushed himself off the floor and proceeded to reach the doorknob when the reality of his life hit him. It was the moaning mouth of his mom, muttering the title he was compelled to have since the day he was dragged out of the womb. She knew she was mocking him, and he was upset. His reply was the same as the one he had resorted the day before. Ugh, why am I still alive? It wasn't that he disliked his life and absolutely hated everything around him. He simply loathed himself. Leaving the safety of his room, he hauled himself to the bathroom, avoiding the screeching barks between the birth giver and the unattractive little geezer. He preferred to call him that, since frankly, he isn't an important individual to recall a name for. With the slam of the door, I found myself to an eye-to-eye skirmish with the mirror. From there, I seemed to have drifted off from reality as the day advanced. I couldn't quite remember what happened. All I remember was that I had gone to school and returned back to hell. With two uncertain blinks, I seemed to be back where I started. I was standing in the middle of the bathroom, quite muddled. The black aroma surrounded the small interior, and I was being suffocated. Goosebumps ran down my arms, and my pupils adjusted downwards to spot the bottle of Advil on the corner of the sink. Then, in my clenched, shaky palms, were the prescription drugs. I know that I, a normal student, so-called great child of my guardians, had just swallowed a handful of pills before my autopilot mind had clicked off. It felt like a dizzy dream, but the growls in my stomach told me it was real. I was in reality, and the realism couldn't be any more real. I was calm. I wasn't sure if I was ready to die. I just knew what happened someday. Everyone perishes. Was it the fighting? The struggle on the way to get to the car while being harassed by my own mother? Or was it the misinterpretation of others mistaking me for a female just because of my gender? Oh God. They were shredding the heart of my emotions. I wasn't able to stand it anymore. The toxic mixtures twirled within me as I thought about the difficulties I have dealt with throughout the day. Idiot, I muttered. I went to my chamber and lay down in the resting cot. I was lost, and I was basically dead. When the morning arrived, it was rather surprising. I was awakened by the warm stroke of the sun's touch. My brows narrowed, and I fought to sit up. My torso was in a battle between the tormenting twinge of my frame and the sharp pounding within my chest. I had met my demise. My brain landed upon my fist as I recalled the situation. At midnight, I forced myself to regurgitate the poison from my stomach and my mind. I knew I didn't want to die, and I didn't want to give up. I'm strong. Living my life surpasses the music wiping one's existence away. It's a struggle to live that makes a person human. I have problems just like everyone else in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Anina. Our next reader, Leanza Rodriguez, reading Fighting Three Different Wars.
"Babe, wake up," Mom whispered in my ear. Sitting on the bed, she shook my arm. I slowly poked my head up from under the covers. She was smiling. When I realized what day it was, I leapt out of bed. "Daddy's coming home today," I laughed, covering my mouth to block my morning breath. Mom walked to the door of her room. Come on, Lee, start getting ready. In my room, a new outfit was laid out smoothly on my bed. Dad was coming home. I had to look beautiful. The skirt was camouflage with pink and blue flowers on the bottom and a strawberry milk pink shirt. Everyone would know that I was an Army child. After hours of getting ready, we left home to pick up Dad from the airport. Mom pressed the key into the ignition. The car engine grumbled and then dimmed into a purr. As we drove on the highway, I looked down at the contrasting complexion of my hand on Mom's. I was captivated by the beauty of them. I drifted back into the first week Dad was gone, reminiscing on how it all began. I have to be strong for Mom. I can't be weak now. No, not now. My words had whipped around my head, creating a tornado of thoughts. I stood before the mirror and stared at my tear-stained face. I wiped the tears away, scrubbing off any sign of weakness. I am my father's daughter, and I must be strong, especially while he's gone. I finally left my room to be with Mom. Though she didn't want to admit it, I knew she felt alone. I took her hand and we closed our eyes to pray. There was nothing left to do but sit in silence. Beep, beep. The sound of the horn snapped me back into reality, literally, giving me whiplash as I awakened from my daze. There was traffic. My hands transformed into fists. Come on, drive faster, Mom yelled at the car in front of us. She looked at me and breathed slowly to release all tension that had just engulfed her. Relax, we're going to get there soon. What's important is that he's coming home to us. Mom shifted her eyes back to the road. I looked at her face, paying attention to the story beneath it. Looking at her face, I remember the night I stood awake doing the same thing. It was nighttime, and I was scared that the nightmare would return, the one I'd been having since family day at the Army base. I turned and faced Mom. She was asleep, but her eyes opened when she felt my body shift. She put her arm around me. It's okay, babe, I'm here, and so is God. Go to sleep. I shut my eyes, but the engine in my head was still on full speed. Mom was the one in my thoughts. That night, I wasn't having the nightmare about my dad, because my mom was the one awakening my thoughts. I knew she put this brave facade on whenever I was around, but what she didn't know was that I was always around. I'd seen her sitting, holding her head, as tears leapt from her face and smacked the table. The sound of the ticket machine at the parking lot brought me back once again. We were finally there. Daddy was somewhere in that building. Ma, can you believe we're about to see Daddy? Mom and I quickly made our way to the gate. I ran toward the crowd. Someone from my family whispered that he was by baggage. I skidded to the conveyor and froze. There he was. I yelled, Daddy, I missed you so much, reciting the last line of a poem I had written. Daddy abandoned his bag and took a knee. I threw myself into his arms. I put my head on his shoulders, and tears of joy slid from my face. Dad got up to find his wife staring at him. He extended his arms and pulled both of his girls in. I love you, girls. Thank you for all of your support. I no longer dread the night. My family is a unit again, and together there is no challenge that we can't overcome. If it weren't for my parents and all of the things we have gone through, who would I be? Like Dad, Mom fought her own war while she was gone, but she overcame it all. Dad has taught me that sometimes we have to put ourselves on the line to defend our fellow man. And though it may not always be the prettiest line to stand on, it proves that we're honorable people. His will has inspired me to keep on keeping on, as I always say, to never back down. I don't care what people say, but Superman and Wonder Woman have nothing on the two people God made my parents. I have not hidden the fact that not having my dad by my side at points in my life took a lot out of me, I was empty, like a bowl waiting to be filled. But I'll also admit there will be no happier day than the day Dad returned to stay. Mom, Dad, this is for you. I love you. This is not the end. This is just the beginning of the rest of our lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanza. Now reading Obstinate Consumption, Marina Wardell.
One by one, she stabs a pea by the tip of the fork's prongs and hesitantly nibbles. Between each bite, a sieve of water is in place as she tries to keep from filling up from the food. I look down at my own bowl, filled halfway with leafy greens, lightly lathered with the only low-calorie dressing available. I watch as she attempts to carve her piece of chicken with the plastic spoon the hospital provides for her. She struggles as the spoon deviates and returns to puncturing the peas. I fumble around the lettuce with my fork, stalling. I guzzle a cup of water, avoiding the food in front of me. Just as timid as I am, she gives the chicken another try. She carefully slices the chicken into paltry parcels, tricks we've picked up over the years, and one bite after the other, the chicken gradually recedes. Once she started, she couldn't stop. She trades her fork for her spoon and shovels the remainder of the peas into her mouth, resulting in a barren plate. I smile at her with pride of her accomplishment. She returns my gesture with a grim smile, fighting the urge to run to the bathroom and make herself throw up. I mentally hold her hand and she accepts it. She looks at my untouched salad and tenses up, clenching her jaw. I see her look away and blink to hold back her tears. I'm so proud of you, I say. You did great. She nods her head, but I know she doesn't feel that way. I want to hold her hand and give her a hug to comfort her. Watching as she struggles to finish her plate of food while I cannot finish barely a salad makes me feel inadequate. If she can conquer her eating disorder, why can't I? I hear a reticent whimper come from across the table and see her with her legs wrenched tight against her chest. Her body quivers as she tries to restrain her cries. My heart fractures as I watch her crumble. Her hushed cries become resonant. She burrows her head into her legs, her knees perforating her soaked eyes. Fenced in by the commotion encompassing us, overwhelmed, she dashes out of the dining hall to her room. I want to go after her, engulf her in my arms, and tell her that it's okay. Eating is okay. Eating is okay. Eating is okay. Eating is okay. In that moment, realization hits me like a contusion to my brain, only now I can see more prominently. All the fog that has been enveloping my mind, subverting it from the truth, deteriorates and releases me from subordination. Can I go to my room? I ask my supervisor. Are you finished eating? I nod my head in response and he documents my intake for dinner. I casually slip out of my chair and stroll down the hall around the corner to my room. I shut the door behind me. My body buckles. My limber body cloaks the bed as my eyes bore into the desolate ceiling. I hear Anna screaming at me, questioning my realization. She's telling me that eating is not okay. It never has been, never will be. This inner battle detonates my brain, pulsating against the walls of my skull while my wise mind combats with Anna. I clasp my eyelids together, hoping that will push aside the riot in my own head. How can I tell Violet that eating is okay, that finishing a meal is an accomplishment, not a deteriorating endangerment to her being, while my own eating disorder is convincing me the complete opposite, and yet I'm still devoted to that belief virtually like a religion? If I can preach to her that she is going to get better, that she is going to overcome her depression and eating disorders, I must be competent in telling myself the same, shouldn't I? Instantly, after drowning for 9 years, I finally reach the surface. I will get better for Violet, to prove to her that we don't need to bow down to our masters, anorexia and bulimia. Anna and Mia are not our friends. We can conquer them, seize control of our lives, of our minds. We can eat without the thoughts in our heads screaming at us because we are simply doing something that is a prevalent function in life, a human necessity. We can keep our food down without the yearning urge to get rid of it. We will be able to look into a mirror, our reflection staring back, without criticizing the person in front of us. The wounds on our wrists will heal. We will have a reason to live. We are stronger than our disease.
Thank you, Marina. Next, we have Ashley Rivera, reading Home is Where the Heart Is.
In the summer of 2012, I arrived back in Hoboken to visit my mother for 3 weeks. I hadn't seen her since my parents' separation and the move to West Virginia with my dad and my younger twin siblings. My dad found something better in West Virginia, a job and a life that was somehow his own. We lived with his girlfriend and her 4 kids. I never fit in with that new family. My stepmother was an amazing actress. She was nice at first, but I could tell that she didn't like me because I looked like my mom. In West Virginia, the environment was country. I liked it, but I couldn't stay there. I was bullied at school. The girls were cruel. They called me ugly names. The males were no better. They said I was ugly and disgusting to look at because I was fat to them. Boys and girls alike used racial slurs. I was bullied to the point where I wanted to kill myself. I had a few friends. I was a loner and left to fend for myself. My mask was to be strong, but inside I'm breaking, screaming, sobbing. No one noticed my cries for help. No one noticed that I stopped being myself altogether. When it was time to go back to West Virginia for school, I wanted to stay with my mom. I felt like I was back in the womb again, a place where nothing bad could ever happen to me. Besides, every time I talked to my dad, there was always an excuse why he couldn't pick me up. When I told him I wanted to stay in Hoboken, he flat out told me that he wasn't going to force me to stay with him. My mother and I moved back to our apartment. It was the happiest day of our lives. We were dancing, listening to music as we cooked breakfast together. I couldn't wait to eat. The smell of scrambled eggs and veggies and spam wafted the air. Then I heard a knock on the door. When I checked through the people, there was no one there. When I opened the door and looked down, there was a pink slip of paper. My chocolate irises widened like a deer in headlights as I read it. Tears ran down my cheeks. I was crying an ocean. "Mama," I cried in desperation. She hurried over. I couldn't form what I read into words. It was like I was a baby again. I couldn't talk. A fish out of water, wheezing. I finally said, "We were getting evicted in 3 days." My mom was furious. She held me tight and cried along with me. My dad was supposed to pay the rent since my mom left with her sister in Ohio. The HA told us the apartment couldn't be paid for and haven't been paid for in 2 months. I was hurt. My dad basically left us homeless on the street. How could he damn us like this? His own child? My mom tried giving the housing authority the missing rent money, but they couldn't. They wouldn't take it because it was out of their control. My mother wasn't going to wait around for them to kick us out of our home. She had a plan. She went to Staples to make flyers so everyone could know the injustice done to us. On that last day, they gave us time to get our stuff. As we were about to hand out flyers and call Channel News 12, Carmelo Garcia, the executive director of Hoboken Housing Authority, called off the eviction. Our war was won. My mother got me back in Hoboken High School. I feel safe and sound here. We live happily together. The only thing that will make things better is to have the twins back with us. But it's an entirely different story altogether. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Now performing The Sound of Silence, Marina Wardell and Jason Oliveras.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again because a vision softly creeping left its seed while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never shared, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence.
Thank you, Marina and Jason. Our next reader, Jolinda McDonald, reading Dog Tags. When I was 8 years old, I came home from school and saw a bunch of bags packed. I saw my mom crying on the couch, and my dad looked frustrated. I heard a knock on the door. My dad said, "Chula, go and open the door for me while I deal with your mother." I opened the door. 2 men in blue suits were standing there. They looked like statues. "Is Joseph William McDonald Jr. here? He needs to come with us now." "Yes, who are you? Why do you need him?" I was confused. They ignored me and asked the question again. Should we tell her or let her parents tell her? Just then, my 18-year-old brother, Joe Jr., came out of the room with a big bag and a smile on his face. I could see my parents holding him. I heard my father say, "He will come back soon and everything will be okay." My brother came over to me. "I'll be back, Nana. I'm going somewhere really great that will be a better place for me. You'll see me when you get up." I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that 2 people came and took my brother. The next day when I woke up, I ran to his room. I opened the door expecting him to be asleep, but he wasn't there. My parents were still sad. I ran around the house like a cheetah, a wild animal tearing things apart. With a confused look on my face, I turned to my parents. "Where is he? He promised me he would be back today." "Nana, you're not going to see him for a while. He went into the Navy. Right now he is at boot camp." My mom seemed like she was going to cry again. I knew she was holding back because of me. My heart was an icicle, frozen to the core. Many nights I woke up screaming for him after having a nightmare that he wasn't coming back. I would look at our door every day, picturing him coming through the door. I never expected him to join the military. My family was inseparable. Whenever one of us left the house, everyone followed. We went everywhere together. My brother and I had a great bond. We would play games together till 4 in the morning. Whenever he went somewhere, he always invited me along, but this time he couldn't. I guess it was his time to get away from the family. My brother stayed in the Navy 3 more years after boot camp. He missed birthdays, Christmases, and other important days. I felt empty inside. A part of me was missing. Then on Christmas in 2009, my whole family was celebrating at our house. I was the only one who heard the doorbell ring. With my favorite drink in my hand, I danced to the door and opened it. It was my brother. I dropped my drink. I fell to my knees and started crying. I held him for a long time. I couldn't believe he was actually home. He finally came back to us. He tried to say hi to our whole family, but I wouldn't let him. I held him with a big smile on my face.
He said, "I'm sorry, Jolinda. I know you're happy now, but I will have to go back. I'm only able to stay for a week." I cried when he left, but I knew what was coming. I had been through it before, so I knew how to handle it. He tries to call every now and then, but it's never enough. He can't really tell us where he's at because it's confidential. In the meantime, he got married and had 2 kids of his own. I know he is a great father and husband. I know one day he will come back home for good. Until then, it makes me proud that he helps make our country a better place. I love my big brother with all my heart. I am proud to be called a Navy sister.
Thank you, Jolinda. Now reading Not Another Teenage Love Story, Isiah Neidert.
If someone asked me a few years ago what I wanted in a girl, I would have given a description of Linda Rosado. I remember the first time we met. It was in Columbus Park. She was nice and talkative, her smile and her light brown eyes. She was beautiful to me. One day in the summer of 2012, we went to Cold Stone to get ice cream. That day I couldn't stop thinking about her. I wanted to tell her that I had a gigantic crush on her. I even ordered the same ice cream, chocolate chip cookie dough, on purpose to show her that I liked her. I guess in a way I was trying to flirt with her. We ended up becoming a couple through text messages because she was in Puerto Rico for the month of July. I told her I had a huge crush on her. She said she felt the same way. I knew it was meant to be because we had been through the same thing. We were both cheated on by an ex. I was there for her and she was there for me. Even though she didn't know about my past, I realize now that as we hung out, she helped heal my pain and anger as much as I helped heal hers. I really thought I knew what love was when I was 13. I really believed my ex could make me happy. Linda helped me understand what love really is and what it means. Love is being happy with a person who knows everything about you, who is there for you no matter what, who knows how to treat you, and will stop at nothing to make sure you're okay. People tell me I'm too young to be in love or that I shouldn't even be writing the story about Linda. They say most teenage relationships don't last past high school. I think Linda and I are different though. I get this amazing feeling when I'm around her. I smile without realizing it, and my heart beats faster than normal. Maybe even faster than the speed of light. We have this thing where we like to say, "I love you more." I let her win because I like to see her happy. We've been together for 1 year and 11 months. We never argue, though we do have little disagreements. Not a day goes by where I don't say, "I love you," or I look her in the eyes and kiss her with passion so she knows I mean it. If we were to break up for whatever reason, even though I don't think it will ever happen, we'd probably end up like the movie The Notebook and stop at nothing to get back together. Because our love for each other is strong and means something to the both of us. Ours is not another teenage love story.
Thank you, Isiah. Our next speaker, Amani Prince, reading My Aunt, the Rockstar.
My aunt was given the nickname Rockstar by her 3 best friends. She was known around Jersey City for the way she dressed, the way she smiled, and the way she joked around. She was the life of the party. Whenever she and my mom had an all-girls party in our backyard, she was always the first to get out of her seat and dance. If you were sitting down, she would grab your hand and make you get up and dance. She just liked being around boring people. Every moment spent with her was amazing and extremely fun. I can go on and on about how wonderful my Aunt Tamika the Rockstar was. On September 1st, 2013, my mom and I were in the bedroom watching TV. "Have you spoken to Auntie Mika?" I asked. My aunt had gone to York, Pennsylvania for her best friend's daughter's sweet 16. "No, but you know Mika, she's down there having fun like always." I laughed because it was true. I knew she was having a blast. She could party all night long without stopping. That was just the type of woman she was, and everybody loved her for that. Suddenly, I heard a little tap at the door. At first, I ignored it. Then I kept hearing it over and over again. Someone's banging on the front door. I looked at my mom. "Let's go see who it is." We opened the front door to a lady and a guy standing there. By the look in their eyes, I could tell they had been crying. The woman introduced herself as Rachel's mom. My mom said, "Hey, what's going on? Are you Tamika's sister?" My mom took a deep breath and said, "Yes." "Why? What's going on?" "Let's go inside. I have to speak to you, and it's best that you sit down." "Oh my God," my mom said as she sat down. "What happened?" Rachel's mom started to tear a little bit. Her first words were Tamika, and then she stopped talking. She put her hand over her head. "This morning, Tamika was in a bad car accident." My mom started crying. "Oh my God, did she make it? Where is she? Is she okay?" Rachel's mom told us that my aunt and her fiance didn't make it. They were found at 4 a.m. in York, Pennsylvania. At first it didn't hit me, but once it registered in my head, my heart stopped. I ran into my room and broke down. It was so unreal. Why was it her time to leave, and why did she go so soon? I wanted to be left alone. I didn't want anyone consoling me. I wanted to have my moment alone to think about everything that just happened. After I got my thoughts straight, I went into the dining room. My mom was still crying. I walked over to her and held her. I didn't say it was going to be all right. Even though I was hurting, I knew she was hurting more. My Aunt Tamika was my mom's twin sister. They did almost everything together for 37 years. And for my mom not to see her sister one last time, it was hard. Days went by and it felt so unreal. I thought eventually I would wake up from a bad dream and my aunt would be in the kitchen cooking breakfast for everyone, but she was really gone. I wish I could have told her I loved her one last time. I wish I could have seen her bright, beautiful smile and smelled the scent of her perfume one last time. I didn't want to see her that way at her funeral for the last time. It broke my heart, but when I saw her, she looked free. She still had that bright, beautiful smile on her face. My Aunt Tamika was my favorite aunt, and no one will ever replace her. I love and miss her so much. I sometimes wish that I could have one last moment with her, and that moment would never end.
Thank you, Amani. Now reading Thanks for the Memories, Jason Oliveras.
My body was tense, and my eyes were stinging from my tears. My hand gripped the kitchen knife, and I began to pant heavily. I sat on my bed with my head cradled between my knees. What the f am I doing? I struggled to get the strands of hair that were sticking to my tears out of my eyes. I gazed at the glare of the blade. It gave an aura of death and despair, not a hint of hope laid within the cold, lifeless piece of metal. All I could think about was slitting my wrists and finally ending this war with myself. I'm a prisoner in this body, trapped in a world where I feel like a mistake. What now? My mind grew numb, and my stomach wrenched and contorted. I threw the knife across my bed, and the sound of metal clanged in my ear. That's when I had my epiphany. It had been a normal spring afternoon. I tried to go to the library to do some homework, but it was closed for some random event. I sighed heavily and decided to sit on the stoop of the building. I removed a few books and began to scribble. A group of boys passed by on the opposite side of the street near the park. They began to smile cynically and nudge one another. "Faggot, nigga, you gay? The fuck you looking at, Gayson? Go to hell." These phrases echoed in my head. They continued to walk, making their way to the basketball court. I slung my bag over my shoulder, the weight suffocating me. I began to walk. Soon the sound of their footsteps grew louder, and their mumbles echoed behind me. They grinned as they picked up some phone books that laid on the stoop of a nearby apartment. My stomach was filled with stones. I wanted to run, but I couldn't make it. "Go away!" The next thing I heard was, "Faggot, piece of shit!" and then a heavy yellow phone book slammed into the back of my head. I was dazed. I threatened to call the cops, and then a boy shouted, "If you call them, we're gonna gang up on your gay ass and beat the out of you until you're dead." I jetted into a nearby liquor store. I told the man at the counter, "There's a group of guys following me. They're going to kill me. You have to help me, please." The man went outside. The guys were there waiting for me. There was nothing he could do except call the cops or try to sneak me out the back entrance. We made our way to the basement and peeked out the back door. It was no use. They had surrounded the place like vultures scavenging around an animal carcass. The man dialed 911. Just as the police arrived, the pack of vultures vanished. The cops came in to question me. I talked. They listened. I didn't say much on the ride home. We walked upstairs and the officer told my confused mother what had happened. Eventually, I was dismissed to my room. My mother and I didn't even talk about it. Later that night, I just wanted to end it all. In a fit of rage, I began to claw at my arms with my nails and punch myself in the head. I threw myself onto the floor and I laid in the fetal position. I quivered like a dead autumn leaf. I kicked my dresser and something fell on me. It was a picture of my sister. She's the most important person in my life. After she moved to Florida to live with her new family, I felt torn and lost. Without her here, there's no point to anything. She would hate to see me like this. I recalled our most precious memories, watching Tim Burton movies, listening to our favorite bands, singing and dancing, and most of all, her holding me when I fell. These images swirled in my head and calmed me. They reminded me that I love my sister far too much to let her go and give it all up. I slipped my shirt off and wiped my face clean, pulling my hair back into a ponytail. My breathing softened and I lifted myself off the floor. I looked down and I saw the kitchen knife. It gave a sneering smile and I picked it up. I crept into the kitchen and slid it back into the drawer. I closed my eyes and smiled. Muttering to myself, "Thanks for the memories." Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Now performing Come As You Are, Marina Wardell, accompanied by Stephen Fuentes and Michael Colomb.
As I want you to be, as a friend, as an old enemy. Take your time, hurry up, the choice is yours, don't be late. Take a rest, as a friend, as an old memory. In mud, soaked in bleach, as I want you to be, as a trend, as a friend, as an old memory. Memory, oh, memory, oh, memory, oh. Swear that I don't have a gun. No, I don't
don't have it good. Memory, oh, memory, oh, memory, oh, memory, oh. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina, Steven, and Mikey. Our next reader is a really good friend of mine. Now reading The Secret of Self-Esteem, Angelica Rodriguez.
Do you think I like walking down the halls, walking down the halls, hearing, look at her, she's fat, she's ugly, why is she here? Over it and over again.
Take your time, Angie.
All I hear is their laughter. They look at me and all they hear is my silence. I feel a tingling feeling in my throat. I wanted to cry. The tears tried to come out my eyes. Should I say something back? Should I walk away? Should I let everyone laugh at me? No, I can't do that. Everyone would think I'm a punk. Should I tell? No, I can't do that either. It all started freshman year. I was looking forward to meeting new people, seeing my old friends. I was a little nervous walking in. I felt like people were looking at me up and down like I didn't belong here. Soon, things started to go wrong. When I walked into the class, I heard someone say, why is she in this class? She doesn't belong here. In my next class, someone said, look what she's wearing. I felt like everyone was laughing as I walked down the aisle to take my seat. As the year progressed, I realized there was always that one kid who wanted to be the class clown. That one kid who wanted attention and got it by making me look bad. For some reason, I could never say anything back when that kid called me names. I wonder if I was the only one getting picked on. When I looked around, I noticed everyone was laughing, but I was silent. I wanted to run for the classroom and cry my heart out. I tried to stay positive, but it was a cycle. Day by day, the same people would say the same things, making me feel the same way. I finally met with 2 counselors in the student center. I told them what was happening. I told them I was being bullied by a couple of kids and I couldn't take it anymore. I had that feeling in my throat again where I wanted to cry. I finally felt like it was okay to cry in school, in their office, just me and them. So I did. I finally cried out my pain. They told me to focus on school, not to worry about what other people have to say, because I only know who I am and nobody can tell me what I'm not. I walked out that office that day with a smile on my face. It was the first time in a long time that I felt okay. I told myself to stay positive. Yeah, I still hear the comments and the laughter, but I ignore it. I've learned to block the negative and don't let anything get to me.
Thank you, Angelica. Now reading September's End, Eimee Mendez.
The steady trickling of rain gently tapped on the skin of the river. Each drop was absorbed by the river as if it was soil begging for life. As my father rowed the boat seating 4, his biceps flexed, his leather tanned skin was chiseled, and each drop of sweat impatiently rolled off his face. I looked back down and saw the water healing itself after every stroke of the oars. When I close my eyes, I can still see the opaque amber of the river grow darker the closer we came to our final destination. Every summer we would go to a river in Connecticut and spend time together. We'd row out to this huge rock that everyone would jump off from. We had a routine. Everyone would hop into the boat, my father would row, and I would swim alongside the boat. My father tied a rope to the end of the boat, so if I ever got scared or tired, I could just hold on to it. Underwater, it was difficult to see and have a sense of direction. Sometimes I'd swim straight and end up swimming towards the bottom. My dad was a hero, and I was a hero in training. He'd jump off the rock, and I'd jump in to save him. On September 4th, 2004, there was a warm yet chilling breeze. The rain was indecisive, and above there was a dark cloud that painted the city a light brown hue. It was a calm before the storm. You could taste the electricity in the air. In the river, there was a sad gloom. It was unnerving. Every inch of my being told me that we shouldn't go outside, let alone to the river. But this was the last day of summer we'd have before school started, so I ignored my instincts. Once we got to the river, the day moved in slow motion. We did our usual routine, but that boat for four seated an undivided fifth that day. When we were coming back, my father was curious as to why his friend didn't jump off the rock. It was our routine, but she had broken the routine. He asked, "¿Por qué no saltaste?" Her response was as cold as her stare, "Because I didn't want to jump today." He grabbed her by the waist, and the next thing I knew, my father was in the river with his friend. A pair of floating devices and an oar fell over, cutting my lip on the way down. For some reason, she was panicking. My father tried holding her up, but she was pushing him down. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I felt so helpless. It wasn't soon after that a nearby jet skier heard me, came over to help, and called the police. 5 minutes later, things were quiet. The fourth passenger was my cousin. He wasn't much older than I, but he acted first. He jumped out of the boat to retrieve the missing oar, but he stopped and came back with a petrified look on his face. He said he felt something graze his foot. I broke out of my trance. I leaped off and swam to my father's friend. Once she no longer felt my father holding her up, she began to float. In utter anger, I punched her in the stomach and she began to doggy paddle back to the boat. We were too far from shore, so I grabbed the rope at the end of the boat and pulled it back to the rock. Across the river, I saw my uncle swimming towards the boat. In the far distance, I heard the ambulance trying to get through to the crowd. And beneath me, I felt my heart sink to the bottom of the river. I was numb. It wasn't until a few moments later that I realized that my father was gone. When I was taken to shore, I only had enough breath to inform the police where I last saw my father. After that, everything went blank. All I remember is rain, flashes of lightning, the thunder roaring and long staccatos of thunder, and I was gaining consciousness in between frequent car stops. I wish I could remember it all. I wish I could have done more. Nothing's harder than losing your best friend. It's been almost 10 years since my father passed away, and it hasn't been easier. It's difficult knowing that I'll never be able to walk down the aisle with my father or have a father-daughter dance, but the love he gave and the memories he provided are things not many people will have. I am honored to have been able to have a father like him, but most of all, I am honored to have him as my guardian angel.
Thank you, Eimee. Our next reader is Mikey Colon, reading Time, Collapse, Relapse, Elapse.
Hey there. Staring at his number, it was never saved because I always remembered it. Wondering if I should press call and wondering if this is what I wanted to do. It's been 2 years since he's heard from me or even seen me. I'm not sure he'll recognize my voice. Part of me is ready to forgive, but his actions 2 Christmases ago delayed my decision. Christmas has always been my favorite day of the year. Hearing the carols, decorating the house, and seeing the presents under the tree always made me happy, even more than on my own birthday. On Christmas, my family always came together, but that year it was different. We went to a party in Brooklyn at my cousin's house. From the start, I knew it wasn't going to be like this, like every other year. On the drive home, I woke up and noticed my mother and him shooting slick and smart comments to each other. It was nothing new. I'd heard them argue before, enough to put myself back to sleep. When we got back to the house, we got into our pajamas, and I decided to sleep in the living room. Looking at the Christmas tree calmed me. Though the lights were small, the warmth of the room was great. The presents taunted me just enough to put me back in my Christmas spirit. But as I was falling asleep, I heard a banging noise, and not 10 seconds later, a woman screamed. Her voice sounded like it was being chased by a demon, and it reached a dead end. "I can't breathe," she screamed. The scream came from my mother. To this day, I hear my mother scream in my head during nightmares, and she doesn't know that I've woken up nights, even in tears. And sitting in quiet rooms, sometimes I can feel the echoes of her cries. I began to shake, but without hesitation, I charged into her room. I saw him choking her. His arms were wrapped around her neck. He was squeezing so tightly that I could see his veins throbbing. My mother's face was pale and raining with tears. I pried him off her. There was more screaming, hitting, pushing, and calling each other names that I never thought 2 people could say to each other. It built up to the point where I ran outside in 2-degree weather with no shoes or socks on. I pleaded for them to stop, and when they finally did, it was silent. And then I realized I lost my Christmas. I almost lost my mother. The biggest thing I lost was my father. I saw him only once after that. I never called him. I kept myself away from that entire side of my family. After 2 years of growing, maturing, and talking to countless people about why I should hate or love him, on January 5th, his birthday, 2014, I looked at my phone alone in my room and pressed call. "Hello?" "Hey," and with a crack in his voice, he said, "Hey, Pa, how are you?" We began to talk as if time hadn't passed, as if all that had happened never happened. I told him how I began doing better in school, how I'd become the swim captain, and how I finally got a girlfriend. He says he's proud. His words made me think that all a father wants from his son is to see his boy become a better man than he himself, to be proud of his little man. I'm not forgiving you, but I think I should show respect to you. I wouldn't be here without you. My voice was strong and confident. And that being said, happy birthday, Father. You might think that I called because I missed or wanted to tell him that I hated him. Truth is, I called to let him know that I became a man that a father can be proud of, even without him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikey. Now reading No More Sorrow, Johnathan Aviles.
I remember moments from the day of his wake. My uncle from Texas came back to New Jersey with my aunt and cousins, except this time it was not a cheerful visit. He took a taxi from the airport and was going to pick me up at my house. I was so anxious because my mom told me to dress up in a suit and pants. In my head, all I was thinking was, what happened? Did someone get hurt? Please not Abuelo. Please don't let it be Abuelo. I remembered when my grandfather moved to Texas with my aunt. I was heartbroken because I loved him very much. I felt abandoned like a dog that he ditched in the middle of the open road. For many weeks, I did not hear from him. Then my mom visited him. She came back a few days later, crying. My mother did not say a word, but I knew that something had happened. My uncle's taxi arrived. He stepped out and opened the door for me. He was dressed in a black suit and his expression was one of sorrow. "Johnathan, Remy is waiting for you at the place." "What happened, Rem?" "I'm sorry, John. Tears gathered in his eyes. I knew at that moment that something bad had happened. Abuelo passed away. Those 3 words hit me harder than I have ever been hit. I felt pain in my heart, my lungs. I couldn't catch my breath. I felt a piece of my heart leave me. My heart and mind were finally able to agree. This was not true. It couldn't be true. Awilah will live forever. He was Superman. He was invincible. When we arrived at our destination, I was choking. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to speak. I looked and saw the words, funeral home. At that moment, I wish I didn't know how to read. As we got closer and closer to the doors of the funeral home, my eyes started to water. I knew that if I saw what I was expecting to see, I would not be able to hold back my emotions or tears. In the funeral home lay the red rug. At the end of the rug lay the man in the coffin, a man with a black mustache, no hair on top of his head and hair on the sides. I was uttering the whole way down, no, please, no. My worst fears had come true. My hero, my mentor, and my grandfather had passed away. He died and I wasn't there when it happened. I didn't even get to say goodbye. I felt horrible because he passed away when he was thousands of miles away from me. I ran to his coffin as fast as I could. Luckily, my mother called me before I got there. She was crying. I could see her lips moving, but I could only hear the voice in my head. Why him? Why did it have to be him? Before I could even say goodbye. Why? Eventually, I heard sobbing all around me. Everyone in my family was crying. It was to see teary eyes and echoing cries. After I went to his coffin and paid my respects to my beloved grandfather, I went to this back room where my cousin Remy, who was a year older than I, was crying. Seeing him there crying caused me to cry even more. It seemed like I would never run out of tears. An endless waterfall came from my eyes. I wish that the sadness and heartbreak were one of the most important people in my life, my cousin. We sobbed until we couldn't anymore. After the wake and his burial, I vowed to do my best in everything. Since I knew that I could deal with tragedy, loss, and hardship, I knew I could excel in whatever I put my mind to. I wanted to push myself in everything. I wished to be an honor student, an exceptional athlete. Everything I do is because of that moment, because of the feeling of losing a loved one. I pushed myself to succeed. I plan to do just that, so he can rest in peace and be proud of me. I love you, I will, and I always will. Rest in peace, Jose Felipe Medina.
Thank you, Johnathan. Now reading the Hoboken Chainsaw School, John.
Oh boy. Test one, okay. And it's dark outside. Chainsaws are scary. Chainsaw schools are scarier. A whistling breeze makes its way around the window and whispers, "You are going to die tonight." As I lie on my bed, thoughts of being chainsawed by the school kids fill my mind. I imagine my new school as being the one depicted in movies where the new kid or the weird one gets bullied. Well, I'm both new and weird. They're going to chainsaw me. I anticipate getting picked on either because of my nationality, my long hair, or something else. Eventually, my mind falling into a deep freeze. The alarm rings. It's time to die! Putting my shirt on or touching a doorknob, I feel as if my skin is being cut by a chainsaw. I walk to school with my mom, and this is going to be the first and the last time this happens. In Georgia, every day I would walk to school with my grandmother. Old school memory stands from my head. I see the red gates of hell open. My mom signs her name in the book, selling my soul to the devil. But after an unexpectedly peaceful exchange of words with the archdemon, we were directed towards my torture chamber. As we approached the classroom, my heart's a fireball. I walk in. They stare. I sit. The teacher stares. The chair stares. My mom stares. I stare. But no chainsaws. But for a moment, I wish there were chainsaws. The stares cut deeper. I look away. I expect to be made fun of and for kids to start tossing papers at me. I glance over and the kids are looking curiously at me, but there were no signs of disdain. The bell rings. As we moved to the first period, a girl from my class was by my side. I got you, John. A smile, but I just don't know what to expect. In the first period, which is the computer class, the teacher introduces himself and then asks us to introduce ourselves. When in Georgia, a teacher would walk in and be like, yo, I don't care who you are, but books to page 9, exercise 75 minutes, or your head's in my pocket. In the math class, I get my quiz on solving equations. In the 8th grade. I see a kid next to me struggling with his math work. Hey, do you know how to do this? Yes, I think you need to. My name's Jacob. Hey. Hey, my name's John. We shook hands. I was glad to help out my new friend on my first day in school to cheat on his math quiz. But now, I head towards the hell surface. The lunchroom, where infernal masses congregate around their cursed tables to hold demonic rituals where they sacrifice their parents' green paper for food. Which table do I sit at? Who's the boss of this table? Oh God. Out of 150 tables, I see one free table and I jump right into it. Suddenly, Bart Simpson corks up and says, hey, can I call you Greg? Like, hell no you can't, but I don't say anything. I sit by two kids, one wide, one tall, both blonde. I haven't said anything all day long until, hey, you look like Chum Chum, and you're a fanboy. Can I call you Chum Chum? We're gonna call you Pizza Face Banana Nose. Replied Chum Chum. I eat my sandwich as I watch fanboy and Chum Chum eat my face without the banana. This was the most memorable lunch of my life. Suddenly, 3 girls chased me around yelling, oh look, this kid's so cute! Preposterous. For my English class, I go to the library to get a book. The librarian is the one you can see in cartoons, but she's cool. She treats me nicely and makes me feel comfortable. But now, I'm headed towards the classroom, gonna get chainsawed for sure. Gym. I have to change and perform physical activities in front of like 500 kids? Oh man. But surprisingly, after meeting that girl in the morning, Jacob, Chum Chum, and the librarian, I'm feeling scared anymore. After an enthusiastic gym class, I head back to the lockers and get changed. But now it's time for my last class, Spanish, my intellectual nightmare. This is now my 5th language and it's not coming easily to me. Kids are taking a quiz and the teacher lets me use the book. Kids look curiously at me and some of them ask me for the answers. This makes me feel like an insider. I'm on their team, it's us versus the teacher. Yet, this is the most awkward class I've ever had today. Why? I'll give you a hint. There were no chainsaws. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Our next speaker, song, Living Without Living, made by himself, Mikey Cologne.
Okay. Think of at night, staring at the blue ceiling, hearing your parents screaming. Over who's dealing too much or feeling too little. This is a breeze that I feel day. My skin peels but never scars, except for when the blade touches our hearts. If I leave, give my ashes to the sea, and if you've got the light, let it shine somewhere else. 'Cause I would rather be left in the black than heaven or hell. Am I really something? Am I thought in someone's head? And if I am, then leave all those feelings in your bed. If there was one thing you could do, it would be to leave me alone. I promise I'm okay, I just wanna be on my own. But tell me someone who wouldn't. If I leave, give my ashes to the sea, and if you've got the light, let it shine somewhere else. 'Cause I would rather be left in the black than heaven or how. I look at the wrinkles on my skin and wonder if I ever not committed a sin. I only thought of me and what I was gonna do. Why lie when I was always taught to say what's true? If I leave, give my ashes to the sea. And if you got the light, let it shine somewhere else. 'Cause I would rather be left in the black than heaven or hell. Good thing that's the end of the song. Thank you.
We would like to thank the Student Press Initiative team, especially Christina Gentry for her hard work on this project.
The Hoboken Board of Education and District Administration, especially Jennifer Lopez for her constant support.
Mr. Stasiak, Mr. McCauley, and Ms. White for their help with this celebration.
Our parents and friends for being there, and especially our teachers, Ms. Hack, Mr. Huggins, and Ms. Kelly for their undenying inspiration.
If anyone would like to purchase a copy of our book, you can purchase it on Amazon.com. Please join us in the gazebo for our book distribution and celebration.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seed while I was sleeping. And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence.